We're learning new details about another mentally disturbed person who allegedly turned killer. An Ohio man has been arrested for gunning down 4 people after ranting about mind control. Stephen Marlow was apprehended in Kansas over the weekend following a 2-day manhunt. The shootings happened on Friday near Dayton, Ohio. The deceased were found in 2 separate homes near the house where the 39-year-old Marlow lived with his parents. The victims were an elderly couple, and in the other home, a mother and her 15-year-old daughter. Marlow will now be extradited to Ohio to face charges. Prior to that, Marlow posted a video on social media about launching a counterattack against mind control. Take a look.
When the world realizes what has happened, there will be justice, but I cannot sit by and be a victim any longer, and I refuse to sit by and do nothing while my nieces and nephews and the rest of my family are operated on with mind control. Our thoughts are not private. It is disgusting and it is cruel. I will be launching the first counterattack against mind control in human history. I want to be very clear, this will not be an active shooting event. I will be executing some of the people responsible for activating shooters. If I happen to survive, please visit me in prison, if only to see the same man you have always known, rather than the victim of some mental disorder that does not exist. What you may not understand is that I will gladly die to expose this, and I will gladly die to help one other victim discover the truth of what has happened. If I can help another targeted individual fight back against telepathy, then the sacrifice will be well worth it. To any TIs who read this, understand that your attackers use the form of ventriloquism I describe in the paper to move your thoughts, but your thoughts can also move their mouths. To my friends in Chicago, Lexington, Dayton, and all over the world, get this email out to everyone you know. The most horrific weapon ever made is being used on human beings, and if you ever learn the truth, you will understand what I did here to protect myself and my family. Get this out to other TIs, other voice hearers, so the world has a chance to fight back. To my family, especially my nieces and nephews, I want you to understand that what I do here, I do for your future, and hope that you can live a life free of mind control. I love you guys.
Still with us, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, and a special guest joining us now to talk about the mental health issues in this case, Dr. Judy Ho, a clinical and forensic neuropsychologist. Dr. Ho, let me start with you, please, as we're listening to what he had to say on his Facebook post. In general, what are the warning signs that a mentally unstable person will become a killer?
Judge Ashley, we see this sometimes where there are these warning signs, and certainly in retrospect, they seem so significant. There's a very, very small proportion of individuals who are severely mentally ill who actually become violent. But there's a few warning signs that we can look for these individuals. Some of them are extreme isolation, extremely radicalized ideas, them saying out loud to a person this way on social media or maybe sometimes in a written email that they intend to carry out violent acts. We have to take that seriously because this is them laying out their plan. And for somebody who might be suffering from significant mental health issues such as having paranoia, delusions, or hallucinations, which Marlow may have had, this is something that they actually think about for quite some time before they act on it. It's not something where they have this thought and the next day they're acting on it. And as you can tell, this is something that he has contemplated, has thought about, and in his mind, he's actually a vigilante. He is doing something good for the world and for his family.
And I think that part, and for his family, because he made very clear that he was doing this for them. He references his nieces, his nephews. So what, if anything, could his family have done to defuse the situation and perhaps prevent him from shooting individuals?
It can be so difficult sometimes for family members and loved ones to intervene because they think, well, we have to leave this person to their own devices. They're an adult, they're making their own decisions. But when we see somebody who might be suffering from significant mental illness, we have to start learning to get involved. I think there's something about our culture that makes us feel like maybe we should step away and let them figure it out. But when somebody is in a very significant paranoid or delusional state, they don't have any insight. and you do have to step in and help. You have to get them to the hospital, maybe call the authorities and do a wellness check, start from there, but tell somebody, tell an authority so that they can actually be sent to the hospital and evaluated. And if it is a mental illness, then there's treatments for it. If the treatments are enacted early enough, we can prevent a lot of other deleterious things from happening, and certainly these violent acts.
Get services in place, absolutely. Nima, let's talk about the legalities of this case, because there's a distinction, as you well know, between being found incompetent to stand trial and the insanity defense. So the incompetent to stand trial is at that point in time, they're unable to assist in preparing their defense. But talk more about the insanity defense and what that means.
You covered it, Ashley. So a judge like yourself will decide whether the defendant is competent to stand trial. Can he or she assist in his own defense? That's a legal question for a judge. The insanity defense usually goes to a jury, and the question is, did the defendant understand the consequences of his actions? Does he have that specific intent, the guilty mind, to know right from wrong? That's usually a question of fact for the jurors to decide. And of course, the prosecution defense, they're going to put on their experts, probably someone as qualified as Dr. Ho, to get inside the defendant's mind. Because in a case like this, it can be very difficult to defend on the merits. You're not going to be able to say it wasn't me when you have these types of admissions and in video shortly before the shooting. So you really got to go down that insanity route if you're the defense attorney for Marlow in this case.
All right, Dr. Judy, I think that all of us are watching and thinking, what would we do if we end up in this scenario? Because this defendant allegedly went into 2 separate homes and shot 4 innocent victims. So what advice, if any, do you have for what individuals can do if they come in contact with someone who has mental issues and is threatening them or attempting to do something that's going to hurt us?
It's such a great question. And I think that in these cases, it may actually be more difficult if you continue to attest to your innocence, because the individual is likely having a delusional quality to their thinking. And they're thinking, well, the person is going to say that they're innocent, but they're actually not. And so it's less about proclaiming your innocence, but actually thinking of some way to appeal to this person's objectives, to their goals, to what they think about themselves. And so one example of this could be, I understand that you're trying to do the things that you're doing to help your family. Let's talk about your family. What are the things that your family would want you to do in this case? If you go through with this, you may not ever see them again. Do you care about seeing them again? So essentially appeal to their personal objectives and their own feelings. For this man, it was really rooted in protecting his family. So talk to him about that. Keep him talking. A big part of this is just to keep him talking. Hopefully somebody has been able to find help during that time, or perhaps there have been cases where people have actually been talked out of committing a violent act by appealing to their personal objectives.
Such good information for everyone to heed. All right, let me ask you, Nima, as a former federal prosecutor, are you seeing any changes to our system in terms of how the mentally disturbed are being prosecuted? Is that happening any differently now, in your opinion?
It's tough because oftentimes the folks that are mentally disturbed, they don't have a large audience. We're dealing with this right now, Nicholas Cruz, right? Obviously, we're seeing this Facebook video in the Marlow case. These aren't influencers. There aren't a lot of people that are seeing these types of videos because oftentimes they're on the fringes. They're loners. So it really isn't incumbent upon family members to contact law enforcement. Obviously, both in terms of federal law and the social media companies, there are privacy protections. So law enforcement doesn't have access to everything. We're not living in a police state. So it's incumbent upon family members to say something, Ashley.